Now, you may remember that Judge Ryan issued a report in relation to the child sex abuse that took place in our industrial schools across our country, and with some very damning segments to the whole area of the neglect of one of our most precious pearls in our society, our children. Now, Tom Wall, who was a resident of the Glen Industrial School, was on with us on numerous occasions before, and he joins us now. And Derek Leinster, my very good friend from the UK, joins us online as well this morning. Derek, a very good morning to you.
Good morning, John, and many thanks for giving us the opportunity, and good morning to all of your listeners.
Thank you indeed. Derek and Tom, you're very welcome to the studio this morning as well.
Very glad to be here.
Derek, I just want to come to you first because, you see, the Ryan report, in as detailed and as damning as it has been, and rightfully so, but there is something also missing. We're missing the fact that Protestant children were abused as well.
Oh, absolutely. But this is a no-go area, because I think Irish society seems to be in self-denial on this. They're in a denial mode that this could have happened. I think they think all Protestants or mixed-faith people were all lived in castles and had loads of money and didn't have this sort of a problem. But unfortunately, the records don't show that. Nor does it show that the help that anybody wants to give to these people is there either. I mean, even the President of Ireland, Mary McAleish, the other Friday there had a meeting with all of these surviving groups.
Yes.
But there was nobody there representing non-Catholics and mixed relations. And when I wrote to her and sent her an email, she sent me one back on several occasions now, saying that this isn't her brief. But it was her brief to discuss the abuse that took place to Catholic children, and rightly so. But equally, it's her brief to do it for non-Catholics, because I'm an Irish citizen.
Yeah, that's the important thing to state there as well. You are an Irish citizen. But just returning to the past, can I just ask you a personal question?
Far away.
Derek, what way were you abused? How did it happen?
Well, I was abused in the sense that I was in a home that they had people running the home who didn't know what they were doing. It was done on a lottery basis. The records show now that the horrendous state of those children in that home, which I was one.
Now, this was in Ireland?
This is in the Bethany home, Rathgar, Dublin 6.
Right.
And in that home, there was a mini Holocaust that took place, and there is nobody, one jot, interested in putting that matter right. There were 14 children under the age of 5 dying between inspections. And if you go into the archives of all the newspapers, you'll find like, for example, Cavan, the Celtic northern paper in Cavan. They were putting 18-year-old girls with looking after 18-month-old children, and they were crawling into pots of gruel and being scalded to death, and all this sort of nonsense, rotting in nappies. And of course, the Irish government have said that they didn't have any records, and of course there is records. It's all there. I've had 101 of these documents from the archives.
Now, Derry, very, very important point here. You are stating that fatalities did take place.
Oh yes. Oh, no doubt about it. It was horrific. And by the way,
what age were you?
I was probably 4 odd when I come out of there.
4.
Yeah, and by the way, there's now with a little bit of stuff that Protestants are managing to get, and mixed faith people, publicity-wise, that are now I'm starting to get quite a few people, and people through my books are starting to find out more about it and starting to send me emails wanting to know how. Because you see, non-Catholics and mixed faith people doesn't think what happened with the Ryan's report has anything to do with them, because it was all talking about the industrial schools and religious orders. Well, you see, in the non-Catholic area, we didn't have any of that, because the industrial schools were done away with in 1917. So we didn't have any of that. So automatically, people from my side of the coin would assume automatically, well, this has got nothing to do with us. And there's nobody there representing us to say, hang on a minute, there is a group of Irish people that are being totally excluded from the whole of their society. And under the Constitution of Ireland, we were to be treated equally, and under the Children's Act of 1908, we should have been treated equally. And if people can get on my website, if I can give it out.
Oh, do please. Yes.
It's Derek.Leinster, it's the www.DerrickLeinster, one word, Derrick Leinster, LEINSTER.com. They can see the campaign, the campaign that I'm doing it on my own. But I'm starting to get, a few more people are starting to step up to the plate. But the Archbishop of, the Church of Ireland Archbishop of Dublin, Dr. John Neal, he doesn't want to know about it. And we need to make these people realise that if they're supposed to be representing a Christian view and a human view, they've got to step up to the plate, stop the nonsense, stop the pretending, apologise to the people that they've allowed to be abused in this way, and have done nothing about it. And I also want the Irish government to apologise to what happened to non-Catholics, because we haven't had an apology. It was for industrial schools and religious orders. So there's a huge crime being committed against people who had no say in what happened to them. Whether I was raised as a Protestant Catholic, my father was a Catholic, my mother was a Protestant. I could have been raised anyway. It was the toss of a coin. Why should I be suffering now? Why should I be ignored and be discriminated on prejudices of these sort of ignorant nonsense? And let's bring the people into the 2009 and put this sort of rubbish in the history bin where it ought to be.
Right, Derek. I have Tom Wall here with me as well, who was...
Good morning, Tom.
Good morning to you.
You can talk there
yes.
to Derek as well.
Yeah.
Now, you heard what Derek said.
I have, and I mean, I'm very, very shocked at what I hear, because I would have thought from the investigative side that was set up by the Ryan report and that into institutional care in Ireland would cover all children that were in institutions that were put in by the state at the time. And I thought that the redress board was set up to redress all problems. I was totally unaware that any group were excluded from that report. And I'm very, very surprised to hear this morning that a group, because they were Church of Ireland, were totally excluded from the report. I think it was a very unfair decision, wherever that came from. And I'm very, very surprised to hear it. I do know from our own experiences, even through the Catholic-run institutions, that it has been a very, very long battle to have the truth accepted, first of all, and have our stories told and believed. I mean, it has been going on for years, and we've had a total denial right across the board. We've had total cover-ups from the Department of Education, and the way they dealt with the Catholic, even, institutions hasn't been an easy road to travel, and it has been a very dark road in many areas. And even with the publication of the Ryan report, we still haven't got the full report on the Glynn Industrial School in County Limerick here, because what's fundamentally missing and flawed in the report is that the people that have submitted submissions to the Ryan report on the Glynn Industrial School are the Bishop of Limerick, the Department of Education, and the Christian Brothers. But the report in itself is incomplete, because the people that suffered most and the people that were in the institution and were abused in the institution have no input whatever into the findings that I have seen on the Ryan report. And this has happened because when we submitted to put our side of the story into the Ryan report, Justice Ryan could not accommodate us because he had up to 2,000 to deal with from other institutions and was unable to take us on board. And I think what we have got to do now, even in the Glynn case, is that we've got to get submissions from the people that were in the institutions where it affected most and get that completed into a report.
Why, I'm just asking a question here to both of you, but why were Protestant children overlooked in all of this? Because Derek has been on our programme, he's been on the various websites, he's been on the media right across the UK and in stations here in Ireland as well. I can't understand why this wasn't picked up on.
It's very, very. I'm absolutely devastated.
How many, Derek? How many people do you think were involved overall that may have been affected by this abuse?
There will be thousands.
Thousands.
And by the way, you please understand that it's not just Protestants; it's mixed faiths.
Mixed faiths.
Most of the people born in these so-called Church of Ireland homes would have been born by their father might have been like mine, a Catholic, and their mother would have been a Protestant, or a Church of Ireland, or a Presbyterian, or a Methodist. So, and that's a problem as well, in the sense that, and we're so scattered. You see now, like Mr. Wall here is talking about Glyn, and rightly so. And those people from Glyn and all those people who ran them things, they should be all took. And they should be brought before a court. And they should be locked up forever, in my opinion.
Well, you see, there's one thing, Derek, that has come true that has really stunned an awful lot of people is... I know that there was a background information to this, but it basically means, and you covered this, Tom Wall, the last time as well, that the names, the identities of the perpetrators of these heinous crimes against children have to date been unnamed.
Yes.
They have not been released.
And
now, just as Derek said, they should be brought before a court. We all feel that.
Yes. Now, you see, this is the difficulty we've had, and Justice Ryan himself has had it, that when Justice Ryan got the job of compiling the report on the institutions in Ireland, the Christian Brothers took it on themselves to take him to the High Court and to get an order made that prevented him from publishing the names of the brothers involved in the institutional abuse. And what has come forward now is even more shocking news through the Justice Ryan report from the Department of Education and from the Christian Brothers themselves.
Yes.
That brothers that were suspected of serious sexual abuse in other institutions were sent into the industrial school at Glyn in County Limerick to get them out of the way, to protect the name of the order. And while Justice Ryan completing his report, has said that it put the children at Glyn in grave danger. We also had a situation where a brother that done serious physical damage in Clonmel Industrial School, where he pulled a hair from a boy's head, was sent to Glyn Industrial School, and where he totally went on to abuse in Glyn Industrial School and fractured a boy's jawbone. And that was all covered up again by the Department of Education. And then he was transferred from Glyn onto the Tralee Industrial School, and where he caused more havoc in Tralee Industrial School. So
Yes.
there was a whole scenario of cover-ups between the Department of Education and the religious congregation.
But that went on at that
yes.
time. But you see, Derek, what you were saying there as well, there's a litany of abuse that you're highlighting. Now, what is really the next procedure that you can take to highlight the injustices and abuse that were done to children?
Well, one of the things that's going to help is for the media to step up to the plate. You see, to be honest with you, the media in Ireland, along with everybody else in Ireland, have a lot to answer for. Because if they'd have done their job properly, instead of worrying about protecting all these bigwigs that was up to the neck in wrongdoing, and let's not kid ourselves, had there been a war on, up to very recently, the ministers of education in Ireland would have been charged for war crimes against children. And those people should be brought up before a court because they knew what was going on. They have denied for 11 years to me that there was any records to say that they got a duty to do inspections in the non-Catholic homes, and particularly in the Bethany home, Rathgard, Dublin 6. I've now got 101 documents which proves they were lying. Why are they lying? Why are they allowed to be lied? I need to get them people into a court. I need to they have the opportunity. Because if ever it went to court, it would never go the full course because they wouldn't want, neither the Church of Ireland nor the Irish government would want to be shown up in the world to how uncivilized they were to allow this to happen to children. I mean, you've got to also remember, in my case, I was an unwanted child. I was born out of wedlock. I had nobody in this world that was going to represent me. I was dumped, right? Now, a lot of people in Glyn and in the Artane or whatever were born in families. But people like me, we have got nobody speaking for them, and their families probably let them down as well. But as well as the officials, plus in the other departments like Glyn and Artane or whatever, there are hundreds and thousands of people fighting for the one cause. And good luck to them, and God bless them, and I wish them every step of God with them and win. But there's no hundreds, there's no thousands of people doing the same thing for the other side. And that's what I want. I'm an Irishman. I'm an Irish citizen. And I want to get the same rights. I want to be treated the same way. I don't want one penny more or one penny less than what an Irish national anthem, irrespective of whether he's Catholic, Protestant or Jew.
Now, I just want to come back to Tom Wall there as well. You heard what Derek was saying as well. Derek seems to have the evidence there as well that, the children of mixed faiths, we'll call them, as well as being Church of Ireland Protestant, they seem to have been sidelined or forgotten about, Tom.
Yes, I find that very, very strange. It's something that hasn't arisen up to now. And I'm sure that if they had been in contact with our different support groups over the years there, that we would certainly have lent a hand. I'm absolutely appalled to think that they would have been excluded as children that were put into institutional care in Ireland and that suffered some of the horrendous abuses which we've heard about here. This is the first I've actually heard of it. And I think it's an appalling situation that children, because of their religion, should be segregated in any way and should be treated any differently. I mean, it's to cherish the nation, the children of the nation equally is what this constitution was about. And I find it extraordinary that Church of Ireland children should have been excluded through no fault of their own, that finished up in institutions such as we have, and that the government doesn't seem to have accepted responsibility for it.
Now, Derek, just returning to there as well, I know that you were very emotional there as well. You're just trying to get your point across. It has been a very difficult number of years for you trying to cope with this.
I fought 11 so far.
11.
Apart from my life of suffering with it. Yes. Of the afterfall, of the fallout from what happened to me. But please note, I wasn't put into a home. I was born in a home.
You were born in a home?
Oh, yes. A baby in mother's home, children's home, Rathgar, Dublin 6, like a lot of us. And as I say, and I also meet on these other people from the other organisations, and they've known, and the head of these organisations have known, but in all honesty, these people obviously got so much to deal with themselves, they don't have time to worry about me, because when I was going to their meetings, they said they were dealing with everybody, but there's lots of groups that have been left out, and not just Protestants as well, or non-Catholics. So as the females have done very badly in this arena, like the laundries and all those sort of people. So they have been very badly handled, and I think what's happened, what they've done, they've ruled by divide. They've split everybody up, and they've all these different groups instead of all one group fighting for the justice for everybody that was ill-treated by the state and their agencies. We would have had more success, because I think what's happened now, you see, you got to please understand, people in the Glen or in Artane or where have you, there was hundreds of those children together. So they knew each other, they knew what happened together, and they met afterwards. Some of them may have kept in touch years later, as they went through their lives. But people like me, we were just scattered like seed around the fields, in terms of we would have been like a farm workers' union, and the other people would have been like a factory union. They would have been more organised. We were like farm workers' unions, where we were so scattered that nobody would know what the other one was doing. I never knew there were people like me. It's only since 1908 or sometime like that I became aware there were people like me scattered that went through the same suffering. But you see, people in the Glen, they all would have known what suffering they went through. So I thought I was the only person in the world that suffered what I suffered, and thought there was no point of worrying about it, because there was nobody going to help me. There's nowhere I could turn to for help.
So when you were actually born in the home in Dublin, you were literally just left there?
Abandoned. I was abandoned at 4.5 months. That's when my mother walked out, and I was then put with a family, because they used to do nursings from these homes. The Church of Ireland just have what's called nursings, and they used to put you out for temporary care till they could find somebody. And there was a huge. Please understand that this time there was in the height of sectarianism in Ireland, where it was more important to put a flag on the head of a child of being a Catholic or a Protestant flag. And the Protestants were coming in, the Catholics were coming, the Catholic protection people were coming in the front door, taking out the children that they could, because they didn't have two signatures on of the one faith. And you know yourself that in Ireland then, Catholic, any child born to a Catholic had to be raised as a Catholic. So they were trying to get them all back out of the Protestant sort of considered Protestant homes to have the Catholic flag put on them. And the Protestants were rushing them out the back door as quick as they could, sticking a Protestant flag on them. But it was the children who paid the price. And for example, they were putting people with anyone that would take them. And in my case, they put me with a family who couldn't look, they hadn't got a chance in hell in looking after themselves. So why in God's name would you put a defenceless child with them? It was just absolute madness. And they knew this. The Protestants knew what they were doing. They knew they were doing wrong. So they've got to step up to the plate. And the Irish government allowed them to do what's wrong, and they knew they were doing wrong. You see, that's the thing that's all wrong here. These ministers should be taken up to the plate as well, because there's proof in every camp to say they knew what was going off. The inspectors had told them what was going off. They knew that in 48. They knew it with the report, never mind the Ryan's report. They knew that in the Kennedys report in 1970.
Would you agree, Derek, and I'll just put this question to Tom as well, that with all the huff and the puff and everything like that, that the Ryan report has moved things so far now that there may be closure of some description, recognition of the abuse that all faiths, both Catholics and Protestants suffered, that the people that are unnamed, the perpetrators of these heinous crimes, will be brought hopefully to justice, and that the good work that priests and nuns do continually every day in Britain and Ireland will be properly recognised.
Well, put it this way: if the good people, whether they be Catholic or whether they be Protestants, doesn't happen, unwanted children today are going to be the losers. So have no illusions about that. So, and at the end of the day, they didn't all do bad, and a lot of them meant to do good. But unfortunately, the officials in the government, the civil servants, and the ministers of education, they are the criminals in all of this. They're more criminals than the people who've done it, because their duty was to stop that happening. They were paid to make sure that children were looked after properly in a civilized manner. Did you know that even during the war, so this is no secret, and they didn't need the Ryan's report to tell them in 2009 that the International Red Cross would not allow refugees to be put in Irish homes, whether they be Catholic or Protestant. Did you know that? Does the public know that? Mm-hmm. Because they knew then that they weren't fit places to put children. And that's back in the 40s.
Now, of course, when we're looking back in the 20s, the 30s, the 40s, the 50s, I mean, the new generation of politicians now, they're more aggressive, they're more up-to-date, more outspoken. So at least, the modern politician, as it were, has been able to bring this to an eminent member of the judiciary, Judge Ryan, to bring this to another area, which is very gratifying. Tom, are you happy with the way the report now has
I'm very
been
glad
out?
from the Justice Ryan report that it has vindicated what we have been saying for years and what we've been trying to get into the public arena. Up to then, we had tremendous difficulties. I don't want you to imagine for a moment that it has been an easy process. We've been on a very long, difficult, sad road for many, many years, trying to have the injustices that were done to us brought to the public attention. We met with complete denials and completely a blank wall in an awful lot of cases. It has taken an awful lot of time to get it to. What I am very satisfied about the Justice Ryan report is that it has vindicated a lot of what we've been saying for years, and it has proven beyond a shadow of a doubt that these abuses did occur. What I'm dissatisfied with is in the chapter on the Glynn Industrial School is the people that had affected lives from it. They were the children themselves that were abused and children that were entered into the institution. They have not had an input into the Justice Ryan report. It was from the Bishop of Limerick, the Department of Education and the Christian Brothers, and even that paints a horrifying picture of what actually took place in Glynn. But what I would like to see done now is, at this stage, is while accommodating and taking on board what the Bishop has introduced and the Department of Education, to also include in a separate report those of the victims that were in the institution at Glynn, and probably compile that in a file of some sort and present it to some place like the University of Limerick, where it could be preserved in archives that future generations can look up and see the type of conditions that the children were reared to and the type of abuses they were subject to.
Okay, now I know that Father Joe Young is with us in the studio. Father, you're very welcome. It's my first time actually meeting you as well. Now, just I know you're here for another subject matter as well, but just listening to Derek Leinster, his heartfelt story there, Tom, what your own comment on that?
I suppose, first of all, it's one of a tremendous sadness, shame, anger on the part of most of my colleagues that such could have taken place under the guidance of the Catholic Church, and particularly in the total and absolute betrayal of the teachings of Jesus Christ, who, time and time again in Scripture spoke so openly, honestly, and with incredible passion about of such is the kingdom of God, when he spoke about children and said, unless we become childlike, we will never enter the kingdom of God. and to betray a child of the ability to even experience what it is to live a normal childhood is to leave them with an incredible legacy, pain and suffering, where not alone have they been deprived of their childhood, but also leaving them with incredible pain and suffering for the rest of their lives. And that's why, particularly myself, I would feel that this, outside of, and we all should welcome with open arms the Ryan report and all reports that are coming out. But let it not just be reports. There has to be healing. There has to be proper judicial approach to this whole situation. And there has to be, and that's one of the things that I have always, I'm an avid watcher of the Discovery Channel. And one of the things that keeps coming up time and time again was the Holocaust.
Yes.
And what took place in some of these concentration camps, of which some people still deny.
Yes.
Which is absolutely unbelievable. Now, I feel at this particular moment in time, there is an area for me that I feel is imperative, just like the whole area of depression and other areas where
Yes.
we have been living in total and absolute denial in this country. And it's still going on as we're talking right now. And it's not just, it's going on in homes, it's going on right across society. And I remember one time meeting a very eminent psychiatrist in the United States, Dr. Irvin Colin, who was Jewish. And I couldn't even spell the word pedophile at the time. And I asked him what it was. And he said it was the most obsessive compulsive disorder in the world, and said that they had absolutely no handle on it. And I think there's, for me at the moment, the most important thing, and I came in here on the whole question of Lourdes, is that we've got to find places too where people can find a sense of fellowship, where they can get healing, and where they know that they're not alone, irrespective of their faith tradition, and irrespective of whether this took place in institutions, whether it was run by whatever faith tradition, or whether it took place in the home. But healing has to take place, and it will not just take place in reports.
Mm-hmm.
It will only take place when the proper judicial system addresses this. First of all, we welcome the fact that these people weren't just in a fantasy world. This was reality, and the most painful reality that could happen to any child, because you take that with you for the rest of your life. But I would like to think that this might, and this is a whole new area now to me, I've just come in the door, listening to another faith tradition on this, where, there is a need for people who have gone through these horrific, most painful, soul-filled, destroying experiences, to be able to come together in places where they can feel that it's okay to, to be able to express their pain, their suffering, their betrayal, and whatever else it is that they're carrying with them.
Mm-hmm.
Healing is important. And I feel that the same person that was betrayed, the two people that have been most betrayed in all of this, has been the Master himself, Jesus Christ, and the child.
Mm-hmm.
And I only believe it's through adult children who have gone through such experiences in the presence and in a safe environment with the Master, can such healing take place.
Yeah, very well put. I couldn't even interrupt you there because it was so sincere. I mean, Derek, just listening to Father Joe Young there, doesn't it lift your spirits a bit to understand that this man here feels the way that he does and is so sincere about what has happened in the past. And the healing is the one thing.
I've had no doubt, John, that there are people like the person that's just spoken, as well as the horrible people, the people that are pretending to do a job for God and for humanity, which they haven't. There's obviously will always be people like the gentleman that's just spoke now, on all sides of the equation.
Mm-hmm.
But what we have to do is the ones who are carrying the responsibility for putting these putting these matters right, they have got to step out of the shadows and out of the dark, and they have got to hang that lantern up of light for hope to spread because at the end of the day, we want people to believe in God, and we want people to be Catholics, we want people to be Protestants, and when the day that they're not believing in anything, our society is going to be even worse, because they've got a terrible responsibility to make sure that they nurture young children to grow up with a sense of knowing good from wrong, mm-hmm. and to do the right thing. And we need all religions that has any humanity in them to do that. So the people that are in any particular religion, they have a serious responsibility to get and step up to the mark and do their job. And it's the bishops of the Catholic Church, the bishops of the Church of Ireland, or anybody else. It's their duty now to step up and do the right thing. And it's the Catholic bishops and the Catholic clergymen and the Church of Ireland, etc., should say, hang on, we've got more numbers than what you have, so let's help your numbers who haven't got so many numbers that nobody's bothering with. They've got to come out of the dark now, because, to be honest with you, it ain't just a Protestant problem and it ain't just a Catholic problem, and they've all contributed to the problem. So now is the time to contribute to making it right.
Okay, Derek, with that, I'll just let Tom Ward and Father Joe Young come in then. Tom?
Yes. I think there that you may think there even the redress board system that had been set up in Ireland, that had more or less taken care of children that were abused within the institutions. And I firmly believed when far back that we got an apology from the Provincial of the Irish Christian Brothers, that they were very sorry for the hurt and the suffering and the damage caused to children within the industrial school system, that they were very, very sincere on it, and that we were going to have a proper redress on the whole situation. But unfortunately, I found that wasn't the case, and I found that in my own case, when I presented my case, and named the brothers in the report that I was abused by and the type of abuse, I found it very, very distressing to go to the redress board and to find that the brothers weren't present to answer any questions or to state or any apology on it, and that they actually went in denial, sent a letter stating they cannot understand how false allegations. So I find it difficult to come to terms with the healing process.
Well, Derek, before I let you go, of course, we all wish you the very best of luck in your campaign.
Thank you very much.
We hope the sense of natural justice will come your way, and to you and to yours as well. Is there anything, just a final plea out there, any words that you would like to say to people out there?
Well, I would plead to the Irish national papers, the Irish national media, radio and TV, to give a voice to the people that have been denied a voice. Because if it weren't for the smaller programs like yourself, I'm not being disrespectful, because I'm so grateful that you've given me the opportunity to do it, because without people like you, we've got no chance. But if we can put pressure on those to step up and to the mark and do their duty, because I'm born in Dublin. The Dublin main media in Dublin don't want to know. Now, they shouldn't be allowed to get away with that. And the Father Joe, this morning,
right, Father Joe. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he can contribute by putting pressure on people, because he knows the right places to put pressure on. The Irish media cannot be allowed to exclude Irish citizens from justice, and they are currently aiding and abetting the Irish government in doing that, because you see, at the moment, it is assumed there ain't enough votes in it. It's not going to affect somebody's votes. Well, it shouldn't be about votes. It shouldn't be about money. It should be about doing the right thing.
But I think, Derek, also, in fairness to the media, and I mean, I'm not actually, how would I say, being an advocate for them, even though I work in the industry, but one thing that I am very happy about is our national media and other local radio stations now, I feel, are coming up to the mark, because this report by Justice Ryan really opened up not only educated the people, the lay people, it educated the media, the churches as well, that we all could see in a proper, constructive way what happened. Now it's there. Now we all have a duty to work on it and to bring it to a natural, justifiable conclusion as well. Tom, do you want to say something else as well before we go?
Yes, well, I think after the completion of the Justice Ryan report that there needs to be a follow-up from that. I mean, Justice Ryan's report has just actually verified what we've been saying for years and compiled it. But an awful lot of past pupils from institutions, including the Glyn Industrial School and that, have totally fallen through the system. We've had quite a number that have committed suicide. We've had a lot of people that are still homeless and in homes here, even in Limerick, and people with alcoholism problems, people with psychiatric problems. And they're going to need, this problem is going to have to be addressed in a positive way. I mean, these people need help out there, and they're going to need it on a continuous basis. It's not just a question of giving them a check of, and that is going to be the end of the day. These people are going to need long-term care and long-term aid, in other words, to help them out if they're trying to get settled out in accommodation. And
well, as Father Joe Young and all of you agree, healing. That's what's needed.
Absolutely.
Yes. Healing. Yep.
In my own case, I find
justice and healing.
Well, justice and healing, because you can't have healing without justice, or justice without healing.
Correct.
The two will have to be there.
Yeah.
And you can feel the pain of Derek Leinster's voice as well with what he's gone through.
Absolutely. And if I might just jump in here, I went to Lourdes 16 years ago as a total skeptic, and I'm here talking about Lourdes, and I thank you, John. Not because it might be seen as the Disney World of the Catholic Church, or I'm not here just simply because I'm a Catholic, and this has been one of our places of pilgrimage and prayer. It's a place where I found people of all faith traditions, agnostic, atheist, Buddhist, I can go right across the line. And all I can say to you is in the last 16 years, and primarily due to the influence of a lady who first asked me when I was in Holy Family Parish, South Hill, to lead a pilgrim 16 years ago, that the amount of healing that I have seen take place here, and it wasn't basically at the grotto, it was over a cup of coffee, where people felt it socially acceptable to talk about the things that were really causing them pain, that were eating up their souls, and where for the first time they felt it was okay not to be okay. And that's what Lourdes is about to me. And I would love to see an opportunity, and it's been one of my goals and dreams, is to get a house, irrespective of people's faith tradition, irrespective of whether they've any a faith tradition at all, and where they can come for healing. And from my own particular perspective, Lourdes has given me a lot, because at a particular point in my time, in my ministry, I suddenly came upon an illness that I wouldn't wish on anybody, and that's depression. And I was diagnosed with post-traumatic stress disorder. And but that particular time I was spiraling out of control. I didn't know where I was going. I was angry with God, with the church, and with everyone. But what I found in Lourdes was it was the first time that I could feel that I wasn't alone, that I was loved, that I was cared for. And as a result of that, thousands over the last 16 years, as a result of different pilgrimages that we've had. And again, I particularly pay tribute to Mary Maloney this morning, the Joe Hydes of this world, Mary Tina, for instance. We've just come back with a group called Lost Futures, which we started a few years ago, which is for families who've lost kids through homicide and suicide.
Yes.
And suicide is rampant in this country.
Absolutely.
And we're in total denial about it.
Out of control.
We're also in denial about depression, John. Because if you admit that you have depression, it goes back to that old thing again in Ireland. Well, he's not the full shilling.
Yes.
And you've got to be very careful about what he's going to say and whatever. And most of the people who came with total and absolute respect to our psychiatrists and those in the medical area, and where medication is necessary, most will say it was the cup of coffee, sitting down and sharing and knowing that you are not alone. And if there was one great thing that could come out of all of this, outside of justice, in the area of healing, it would be that all faith traditions and the state would make it possible where there are places like Lourdes where you have that sense of where it's a sense of the sacred, and where it's like, because I don't believe like the story of the prodigal son, it's not natural to go through life alone, and it's not right to be away from the Father's house. And none of us want to spend the rest of our lives in a victim mode either.
Yes.
Because that is
That's dangerous.
Well, not alone is it dangerous. We're going to hand this on to the next generation, and that is only abuse coming again at another level. That mustn't happen. And I know quite a lot of young men that are doing life in prison today because of incredible levels of alcoholism and anger, because areas such we've just spoken about have never been addressed. Now, are we going to sit back and say, well, look, okay, here's a report has come out, this has happened and whatever, but without healing, genuine healing and caring. And I would love to be part, for instance, of a group where people of different faith traditions could come together, like my brothers and sisters in the Church of Ireland, and be able to say, let's come together and let's share what pain we have in common, and above all, what hope. Because if there's no hope, John, no matter what will be done, and if there's no healing, all we're going to do is that this is going to perpetuate from one generation to another.
And that's what'll happen, because Derek, I keep referring to Derek as well. The Irish Catholics, if I can use that phrase, that suffered abuse, they have a report, they have a readdress board, they have a system now where hopefully will get justice and then healing. But people like Derek, they're on the outside. They're feeling
they shouldn't be on
lost
the outside.
and alone.
They shouldn't be on the outside.
And he's one voice there in thousands that are trying to say, well, hold on, I'm a human being, I'm a Christian, and nobody's listening to my story.
Well, I would like to be able to extend the hand of friendship and love to him this morning in my faith tradition.
Yes.
And bearing in mind that I came from both faith traditions,
yes.
right? And say, I would love to be able to share and extend the opportunity for him to come on one of our trips. Now, I know I'm out with a begging bowl most of the week, and I'm suffering from begging bowl syndrome, trying to make it possible for those who can't afford to come.
Yes.
But here are areas again where I feel that the government and people who are in a position should support us in trying to make a difference. Because all you have to do, I was only over shopping at 3 or 4 o'clock this morning, because I do suffer from insomnia, that's part of my problem.
Yes.
And I'm looking at young people, and they're walking down our streets, and they're out of their mind at 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning.
Yes.
And we are losing a whole generation of young people,
and the talent that goes with them,
and the talent that they have, because they're looking for healing, they're looking for nurturing. We've a whole generation of young people right across our country who have confused intimacy with intensity, and that's what I call addictive logic.
Yes.
Every time they have an intense experience, particularly at a young age, and it's getting younger and younger.
It is.
And that's usually with alcohol maybe at first, and then hard drugs and so forth. Then they're returning to that with the hope of getting their intimacy needs met, and all they're doing is going down the spiral.
They do, yes.
But the real issues are not being addressed.
No. Derek, you're not alone. You can feel that, I hope, from this morning's programme.
Well, it's nice and refreshing to hear Father Joe speak.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, the contributions of Tom and an amazing contribution and consideration that you've given. But people, you see, there's so many people like me that hasn't heard the message. They don't believe, they have no idea that what's happening is anything that can help them, because there hasn't been the mass media on this subject for non-Catholics. It's an area where nobody dare speaks about. And by having more media on it, I'm now finding more and more people who were born in the Bethany home is starting to come forward because they're starting to hear more about it.
That's wonderful.
And then the more
important.
that's done, the more they can hear about it. Because you see, you can bet your life there was something probably like, who can say 100 children a year, for example. Well,
Yes.
the Bethany home ran for 100 years. That part of it ran for 50 years. It ended in 1972, and it started in 1971. Now, if it had 100 children a year, that's a lot of children
Yes.
that's been affected by the experiences. And it was a horrific place. And to be honest with you, and as you know, in the climate of Father Joe's comments, it's hard for me to have to say, but at the end of the day, it has to be said that people responsible for allowing that to happen in my state. I'm an Irishman. I love my country. I have fought and routed people over Ireland, even though I've lived outside it for 40-odd years. I'm still an Irishman. I could be an English citizen today. I would never be an English citizen. I'm a Protestant, and I was raised in Ireland, but no piece of paper can change my blood from being an Irishman. But I want justice, and I don't blame Ireland for what happened to me. I blame the idiots that was trying to pretend to be God, and yesterday's Bin Ladens that has put this curse and this muck on the flag of Ireland. Now let them step up and take the muck, wash the flag, and rinse it, and give these people like myself and the Catholics. Because don't forget, I now mix with a load of Tom's friends with these outreach organisations that I go to.
That's good.
I've met hundreds of them in Birmingham and in Coventry and where have you. And they are shocked to think that I'm being treated the way I am, because I now meet some of those people and they've been compensated, and just because I was the wrong colour, wrong place, wrong religion, that I'm excluded. You see, at the end of the day, my father was a Catholic, my mother was a Protestant. I got no say in any of it.
Well, Derek, we're going to leave it at that. I just want to wish
Well,
you
God bless you
personally
for
the
all your
best
help.
of luck, and we'll be behind you as much as we can, and I personally will help you in any way that I can. But I know you have two great friends here, Tom Wall and Father Joe Young as well.
God bless all three.
Thank you indeed. You take care, Derek.
Good luck all.
And we'll talk to you again
God bless
soon.
Ireland.
Thank you indeed. What a lovely, lovely man. Very sincere man Derek Leinster is as well. Tom, just before we conclude, well, actually, we've actually gone into what Father Joe Young was talking.
Yes, I'm afraid I'm very, very... I couldn't agree more with what Father Joe Young has to say. But I think that for myself and my own situation at the Glyn Industrial School, I find that we haven't actually got to that stage yet where we can go through the process of healing. I would have expected we would have been at that stage many, many years ago after the first apology. But I find it very, very offensive that the people who perpetrated these acts can still remain in denial. And I find it very hard to forgive anybody that can still deny the abuses they carried out on you. To come to terms then with the healing process. I think that if they had come forward through redress and apologise and meet you on a one-to-one basis, and that you could discuss and actually talk to them and ask questions which you wanted to ask, to know why did things go so wrong, why did this have to occur, that the process could have moved on far much quicker. And the problem is that in their total denial of what took place, until such time as Justice Ryan has actually proven beyond a shadow of a doubt about what happened, it sounds very hard to forgive somebody that is in total denial of what they actually done. And in sense, when they deny you that right, they just sent letters to redress boards saying, I cannot understand how such false allegations, in other words, they're actually calling you a liar, that the accusations, they're trying to say that the statement that you made to the board are incorrect. And I find that extremely hurtful. And I find that's an abuse in itself, that people can come back all these years later and not say, look, I'm very sorry for what happened. This should have not have happened. I know if I abused anybody in any way, even in the simplest form, I would go to them. Whether they accepted my apology after or not, that would be entirely up to themselves. But I feel obliged to meet them and to say, I'm very sorry for what happened. It shouldn't have happened. Okay. And then we could have had entered into the process of healing.
It would have been a lot a lot easier. I know it certainly would have. Well, Tom, thank you indeed. But Father Joe, can I just come back to you there?
Well, I would like to say to Tom, as a Catholic priest,
yes,
my deepest sympathy for this happened to you.
Yes.
That comes to my heart.
Yes.
And I mean that. Yeah. And there are many of my colleagues out there at the moment I know who share very, very deeply in what I'm saying to you. And many of us, I've spoken to many of my colleagues, feel a great, deep sense, not alone of shame, but are now experiencing depression because of what people like you have gone through.
Yes.
In the name of what we hold very dearly to us.
Yes.
Jesus Christ.
Yes.
And for the betrayal that's been done to you, all I can say is my deepest and heartfelt sadness.
Yes. Thank you very much indeed.
Well, I'll tell you that couldn't be more sincere and reflecting the great gospel as well. But Father Joe, do you ever take a break? Do you ever sort of say in your own silence, look, I've dealt with everybody, I've given my heart and soul to everybody, I'm getting people to Lourdes, I'm dealing with my own torment as well. You know, did you ever say, look, why don't I just pack the bags and go?
Yes. About twice a week.
Twice a week, yeah.
Yeah. Because sometimes I feel I can't compare it to what the discussion is. I wasn't aware that it was going to be of such when I come in that sometimes one of the things...
by the way, Father Joe, I have a habit of this. Sorry about that.
Fair play to you. Well, spontaneity is the essence of freedom, I suppose, you know. But no, John, I have to say that one of the things that has caused me great pain over the years is that, you know, I look at places like South Hill, where I hold very dearly. It was 25 years of my life. I don't see these places as disadvantaged areas. I never did. I saw them as being abandoned areas by successive governments, leaving most of our senior citizens now in some of these areas as being held hostage in their homes, where we have now beginning to lose a whole generation of young people. And I say that at the same time with a desire, and we must believe in hope. But you go around there. Only last week I went to a particular businessman in this town who should remain anonymous. Okay. And I just went in and I said, look, there's a number of lads, I said, and they're trying to fight heroin. They're trying to fight depression. Is there any chance you give us an few bob?
Yes. Yeah.
That we can help him go to Lourdes. Because there is a house in Lourdes, the Shinakalo, there's 63 of them right across Europe.
Yes.
And it's run by heroin addicts. And I believe we could solve the problem overnight for anyone who is genuinely interested in dealing with their own heroin addiction. And all I could get was, how can I put it through the system?
Right, I get you.
How can I put it through the system? And I just felt like saying, you know, well, the system that you're talking about right now, someday it's going to come to your door. And I hope somebody will be there to listen to you.
Yes.
And unfortunately, with a lot of the issues in our country, particularly pertaining to our young people and pertaining to the depression.
Yes.
And as Eric Clapton said when he came on stage with fighting cocaine, he said, denial isn't just a river in Egypt. It's where I've been living all our life. And for many people who are in positions who can really make significant difference in the lives of people. We're losing children every day of the week right across this country through suicide, who are entering into the whole world of depression and so forth. And we're going to lose them and the cost in human terms is going to be enormous. Absolutely enormous. We've 94 people in this country at the moment, John, who are in our prison system, who, because they couldn't pay their TV license.
Oh,
That's not a country I want to.
No.
I just find that just unbelievable.
I find that objectionable, actually, myself, to feel that. I mean, there's 94 people in prison over
taking up places where others who may be out on remand for maybe manslaughter,
yes,
or for serious drug offences. I mean, there was a saying I once heard, I can't remember who actually said it. The problem with common sense is it isn't common anymore. And that's what I find. But that's what Lourdes gives me.
Well, you say, yeah, and that's the whole core message
Only for
as well.
Lourdes.
Only for Lourdes. People would actually be lost completely.
Completely.
And now that is their anchor where they can actually head towards and feel a sense of peace themselves, regardless of faith. Regardless of faith. Now, you have... just before we go up to the commercial break, you have a notice there as well. You have a departure on August, is it?
Yeah, August the 23rd to the 28th is my next visit to Lourdes, please God. And it's been run by Paul Fitzhenry.
Yes, and good morning, Paul, and to all the lads there as well. Know Paul well.
Yeah, good lad. And it's for 5 nights, and it's 715 per person sharing. And his number is 085 7688696. Now, not to hold you, we are suffering in this country from spiritual malnourishment.
Absolutely.
We've gone through the Celtic tiger, which has devoured us. It has devoured us of all sense of sanity, reality, and above all, one of the great casualties for me of it has been that we've lost the sense of, who we really are and what are our priorities. And I remember growing up in Rathban, and one of the three greatest joys of my life was the bag of sugar over the clothesline, the key was on the door, and when you came home in the evening after going to school, up the railway line, and I was followed by a guard one day, and I didn't come out for a month, you threw the bag in the door and you said, "Ma'am, I'm home." And she was there, and you had a cup of tea, and I went up to Old Christians and had a game of hurling. And, in a short few years, what's happened?
It's gone.
And for so many of our kids today, they're living in a fatherless generation. Now they're living in a motherless generation. Many of them have become spiritual orphans. And they are searching and looking, but unfortunately, they're finding, as Carl Jung said, the same word that we use for the most highly intense experience with alcohol or drugs is the same word that we use for the highest and most intense spiritual experience you'll have in life. And one of the greatest needs that we have in the world today, I am computer illiterate. I couldn't be that gentleman there.
He's a wizard. Paul Prendeville, he's a guru.
I've never sent a text in my life. And we have our senior citizens who have a vast wealth of wisdom to share with us, and they are living in total isolation, and in some cases they're living as hostages in their own home. To me, the sign of a civilized Christian society, or indeed of any faith tradition that is really rooted in the spirit and the love of God, is how we treat our senior citizens and our children.
I agree with you.
And
totally.
I feel at the moment a great void in that particular area.
Well,
all I can say is Lourdes is one place where we can go
and
be
people,
ourselves.
But don't down yourself. People like you do it too. look at the great work you've done for people that have been underprivileged in Limerick City and County since you're in all your ministry.
Well, they've given back to me 100-fold, and
Yes.
it's a unique and a privileged position.
Well, I definitely, one thing I'd
and
like
by the
you
way,
to,
John,
Yes,
you only
sir.
keep what you give away.
Well, that is true, yeah.
You only
isn't it?
keep what
Yes,
you give away.
you
And
do.
the greatest thing we can give often is our story.
Yes, but our story can be the incentive for somebody to help them through such dark periods in their life, and God knows it's happening day by day, as you see
Correct.
yourself as well.
Correct.
Father John, it's been great talking to you, an inspiration
My
as well.
privilege.
Tom, thank you so much for joining in our interview and interviews this morning as well.
Yes, thank you
And for your
John. Anytime at
contribution
all,
as well.
that's no problem.
Wishing you the best of luck, and we'll talk to you again very soon as well.